Plastic waste and weeds have taken over some drains along the Obichebi Kwame Nkrumah Circle interchange area in what could best be described as an eyesore. At a time, the Odo drain is being dredged. Now, some of the passageways of the drains have been blocked, and many fear a disaster is imminent with the next batch of rains. Komla Adum has been looking into it, rather him than me, but here is his report.
This is the Awudome Cemetery area, few meters away from the Kwame Nkrumah interchange. Right by the fencing is a drain taken over by weeds. Human activities close to the drain are minimal. But as we move up the stretch, we discover a displeasing spectacle. It may look like a dead end, but it's not. It is actually a drain along this stretch. An unpleasant clatter of plastic water bottles, drink containers, remnants of disposable packs used for selling food, among many other containers, twigs that have gathered here and have essentially blocked the passageway right under this bridge to the other end. Imagine what will happen here if there is a heavy rain or a heavy downpour. All of these may spill over onto the road, and essentially floods will occur. Few meters up, a top layer of algae and waterweed. The situation in front of a Royal House chapel appears different. The portion of a drain had been desilted, but the opening for the dark polluted water is blocked. Pedestrians and commuters here have to endure the foul stench wafting from the stagnant water. According to them, whenever it rains, the entire stretch gets heavily flooded.
The gutter itself has choked. Normally, free has say sometimes free carnage.
The entire area gets flooded whenever it rains. Flood waters from Kaneshi all the way down the stretch because of choked gutters.
Flood even back inside very serious.
They say some contractors were here to cut down trees along the road to make way for some construction works. But the situation since then remains dire. They cut off the trees to make way for some construction work. The pollution continues. Several companies here are negatively impacted by the rains. The State Housing Company, banks, STC, among others, are just a few. Anochi believes the attitudes of people must change. People dump litter in the drains here because there are no dustbins as well. This is the other side of a drain on the Obichebi roundabout circle stretch, and earlier you saw on the other side of a drain where the hole had been taken over by plastic water bottles, drink containers, and disposable food containers. This is where all of that is supposed to come through and then onwardly flow under this particular bridge into a drain across my left. But as it stands now, because of a choking at the other end, the water here is stagnant, and all the refuse and the plastic that we saw in the drain there remain there. These drains flow into the main Odo, which is being dredged by dredge masters. Our visit Monday revealed they were at site desilting. But the question some have asked is, what happens to these small waterways and drains which have been completely taken over by unwanted materials and weeds? The Accra Metropolitan Assembly says it is part of a plan to desilt all drains on road shoulders in preparation for the rains.
They are all part of the plans or the various drains is earmarked for desilting as the rains setting. So they are all part, not only that stretch of drainage, but other roadside drains within the metropolis as well.
Right. Now, plastic manufacturers have asked government to shelve any plan of imposing a full or partial ban on plastic materials, warning that it will lead to significant job losses. In a petition to President Akufo-Addo, the Ghana Plastic Manufacturers Association made 4 key demands to ensure the crisis of plastic waste is addressed. Right, so here are the demands. First, they want government to set up the Plastic Levy Fund Authority. They want government to release the 10% environment excise tax, which has been accruing for a number of years, to release that immediately. They want government to ban imports of flexible plastic bags and packaging. And then, of course, they want government to pass legislative instrument for RPET, which we will explain to you shortly. So those are the 4 main demands being made by the organization. Now, in the studio with me is Mr. Ibu Butche. He's the president of the Ghana Plastic Manufacturers Association. Also here with us to help enrich the conversation, Ama Oforientwi is the executive secretary of Environmental Service Providers Association, and she hopefully will help us understand how we can manage this problem of accruing plastic waste. Both of you, you're very welcome. Thank you for your time with us.
Thank you.
All right then. So, I mean, obviously, Mr. Butche, I'd love to hear from you first. You've got these 4 demands that you're making, but the key one here is that you want the importation of certain plastics to be banned, while the local manufacture of these plastics be preserved, if you will. Yes. Talk us through this particular demand.
In Ghana, we are underutilized. In fact, we are operating at 56% utilization. And when you go out there to...
Explain what that means, underutilization.
Every facility is supposed to effectively run at least 98%. Then you are making economic sense of your operations.
Okay.
Now, if you're operating at 56%, it's just about half of your capacity is idle.
Right.
And that means you're losing money. We have the capacity to supply the demand as far as Ghana's needs are concerned, but then we get 62% of what we need in terms of plastic bag packaging imported. Now, if you go out there to the environment, to the streets, and you did see 10 plastic bags, the black bags, 6 out of them is imported from China.
Right.
These are not OXO bio-compliant, and these are the ones which are
clogging our drains,
polluting the environment.
Right.
Now, government comes back to us to lay the blame. We are operating under capacity. There are imports, and government is blaming us. So we think that we've gotten to exchange where we need to ban importation of the black carry bags. It might interest you to know that we even have local traders who have set up production plants in China, producing and shipping to Ghana for sale, whilst we're losing employment here in Ghana.
Right. That's interesting, and I suppose these figures really change the dynamic of how we view plastic waste. So what you're saying is that about more than half of the plastic waste we see is imported.
Correct.
You're also telling us that those who manufacture it here are only manufacturing about half of how much they could manufacture.
Exactly.
So in reality, there is clear capacity for import substitution.
Exactly.
All right. So you're saying government should simply ban the importation of plastics. What that would then do is it would help local plastic manufacturers to increase their production to 100% potentially.
Correct.
But then the amount of waste on the streets, in the gutters, that won't really change, will it?
It could change. It will change if government released the 10% EET tax, which is accrued over 900 million. And it's still sitting in the consolidated fund. These monies were religiously set aside by us for the management of plastic waste. And government is holding on to this money.
When you say by us, you mean by the government?
No, by the plastic industry.
Right.
Because this is a special tax on plastic raw materials, semi-finished goods, and then some selected plastic products.
So your industry pays it?
We pay it.
Right, okay.
We are paying it. It is not a money which is coming from government. It is from the private sector, the plastic industry in specific.
Right.
And these monies is being accrued and stuck in there for over 11 years now. And we think we've gotten to a stage where we can't accept any delay anymore. And therefore, government should set up the authority. The instrument that has to qualify it means that there should be an authority to regulate and manage the funds. For whatever reason best known to government, government is not being able to set up that fund authority. And without that, the monies will not be disbursed.
This is almost 1 billion cedis.
It's about 1 billion.
All right. Now, you know what I'm going to say. This is money that was being paid into the consolidated fund.
Correct.
So you know it's not there anymore. It's not like it was being kept in a separate bank account for you. It was put into the consolidated fund from which we fund everything in this country. And we know that we don't have 1 billion cedis lying there doing nothing.
I remember I came to this very studio about 1 year ago on this same topic. At that time, it was about 724 million. And in every month, it accrues about 14.7 million.
Right.
And I also remember that the then minister, sector minister for sanitation, confirmed that yes, there is such money there. It wasn't as much as I had indicated, but there was some money there. And so since 1 year ago, if even we had set up the authority, we would have been able to deal with the plastic menace that we have now. But again, we come back here 1 year down the line, we'll come back here and it is 900 million. I pray we don't come back again another year to call 1 point something billion.
All right. Now, I'll come back to you in a moment because there's something else on my mind I want to check with you. But Ama, your industry is the one that has this headache of having to, deal with the waste that is produced by all of us who use and manufacture plastics. So the manufacturers have a plan, but their goal here is to simply allow them to increase capacity. In terms of how much waste they will be generating, the figures won't really move one way or the other. So you still have the same size headache. Now, if we can't solve it now, how can we ever hope to solve it in the future?
Okay. Going forward as a nation, especially now that we want Ghana to be one of the cleanest cities in Africa.
Accra to be, yeah.
Yeah. The agenda, I think what Mr. Butcher was trying to put across is, I think some years back, the government wanted to ban plastic. Then the private sector came up with a solution as to how we can solve the plastic menace or the plastic problem. So that tax came into being. So what we are asking from government is, can you please release these funds so that we can set up industries, recycling, industrialized recycled facilities so that they can take care of the plastics. As a nation, we've gotten to the stage where we should be doing segregation at the households by now. But we've not been able to do this because this same plastic levy exercise fund that we are looking for, we are supposed to use this money to provide bins for the households per the act and all that went into the
Right.
Yes. So with this, by now, as a nation, we should have gotten to the stage where we would have been doing segregation at source at the households, and we shouldn't be having this crisis as we are having, because what should be happening if the funds were available? All government would have done, or all the various assemblies would have done, was just to engage the right service providers to retrieve all these plastics from the system. And then we will as well have big industries in place, recycling. We can recycle them back into PET bottles so that they can be reused. We are in a global world where we are all encouraging reuse, zero landfilling. So going forward, we cannot continue throwing our things all over the place, because all the things we see, they are materials in transition that we can add value to. It's going to create jobs for us, and it's going to make this country very resourceful. And that's the only way we can call ourselves a developed nation. So all that we are asking for is, if really the government is committed to making Accra the cleanest in Africa, we as stakeholders, we have put in a lot of measures. So it's about time they engage us properly so that we can all sit and have this agenda pushed forward properly. It shouldn't just be, I think we've gotten to the time that it should not be actionable. What is the government doing as far as these plastics are concerned? Banning is not the way forward, because for the past 3 months in my house like this, I've not had water. So I depend on the sachet water. And that's why even banning plastics is a no-no for now. So what can we do to solve the plastic menace? That's all that we are calling on government to assist us to do.
Just to be clear, are you saying that you and your members of the Environmental Service Providers Association cannot deal with the plastic menace unless you get this money?
We are not saying we cannot. As we speak, recycling is being done on a small scale. And has it solved our problem for us? It hasn't. And going forward, when it comes to waste management, or when it comes to municipal waste management, it is the responsibility of the government to the fact that the private sector has come into the service provision of sanitation doesn't mean that the private sector is going to be wholly responsible for everything. When you recycle plastic, you are not making any profit. So ideally, government is supposed to subsidize. You can research, you can find out globally. Everybody that does one form of recycling is always supported by government. The various assemblies...
Allow me to check something that you've just said. You're saying that when you recycle plastic, you don't make any profit. Perhaps you'll have to explain that to us, because my understanding is that recycling is a massive industry across the world, and you go to other parts of the world, in Singapore and so forth, they're making billions from it.
What is the cost of electricity in Ghana? What's the cost of electricity in Ghana? Because of some of our economic conditions, electricity is so high that if you want to go into recycling, at the end of the day, you are not going to generate any profit. That is why the sector has not been so attractive.
So even how have you been managing plastic waste so far?
We have been collecting, we've crushed, we turned them some into pellets, and then some are being exported, but that's not the way forward. We need to have an industrialized recycling plant in Ghana to
some are being exported. What happens to the rest?
That's why we find them on our streets and on our drains, because we cannot add value to it.
So everything we see there, that's what you are unable to process?
And beyond that, there are a lot more that you don't even see. So going forward, that's why we are asking that as a nation, we need to explore and look for avenues to solve our plastic menace. And we as private sector have already put in those measures. So why is the government not supporting us to achieve that goal?
Okay,
that is
now
all that we are asking for.
let's interrogate this, okay? Because to my understanding, what you're involved in is a business. It's not a charity, right? You are not charity organizations. You're there to make money, and your business is disposing of plastics, okay, and waste.
We are into waste management.
Right.
We are service providers.
Okay.
We are service providers that go out there. We do the door-to-door collection. Some are into landfilling, some are into recycling.
Very good.
E-waste and what have you.
And you have all chosen to venture into this area of business because you want to make money, right? But what
for the private person.
Yeah, you're all private, are you?
But what we are into is a municipal service. It is a social service. That is one thing that Ghanaians need to understand.
Please, let's clarify the issues. Are you there to make money, or are you doing it as a charitable?
For the private sector, I've said it in the past, and I'll say it again. We are not for that Christmas. Good. So that is why municipal waste, the fact that you have private sector venturing into municipal waste doesn't mean that there shouldn't be an enabling environment. What we need is an enabling environment to thrive as private sector providers.
So the question I was going to ask you is this. Are you making profit?
Currently, as we speak, most of the companies are not making profit.
So why are you still doing it?
Even. We are still doing it because when you buy something like a compactor, what can you use it for? Apart from collecting refuse, what other thing can I use it for?
So some of you are making losses, but you're still doing it just because you own the equipment?
At the end of the day, what do I do with the equipment?
Not to make losses.
Yes, so that is why we are calling out.
Back on an energetic task to make a loss.
That's why we are calling out that when it comes to municipal service, it is the responsibility of government. It is the responsibility of government to even collect those waste. So once private sector has partnered with the government or the assemblies to do this job, the private sector has a role, the government also has a role. And all that we are calling for is for government to also play its part as far as the sanitation.
And to your mind, government's role is to release 900 million cedis to who?
We just said that there has to be an authority. We have to get, there's a legislative instrument already in place, and the procedure and everything has been outlined. Initially, it was with local government. So all we are calling for is the setup of that authoritative body where the private sector can have access to some of these funds. We can go into public-private partnerships and then put up big recycling facilities and even explore other options of how we can put our plastics to good use. And that is all that we are calling for.
So if you had the capacity, which I'm guessing that's what you are hoping these partnerships, public-private partnership will give you, capacity.
We already have capacity as far as the waste management, because in Ghana it is private sector that has taken the lead. All the initiatives have been carried out by private sector.
So you have the capacity to process all of this waste that we see lying about, but you are not doing it because
we do not have the basic infrastructures in place. We do not have government. We are not getting any subsidy. We are not getting any support. By now, if we want to really recycle plastics at a national level, then we should be doing segregation at source at our households, and we are not even doing that.
So I'm trying to
identify
identify
the quality of even plastics that we even have in the system.
I'm trying to identify of the things you've listed, the ones that require money, and it's infrastructure, isn't it?
Yes.
It won't cost money to create an enabling environment or give you subsidies. That won't cost you money.
We need enforcement of the sanitation bylaws. We need some form of subsidies. We just have to make the sector so attractive.
Good. So the money thing, the 900 million, that will be going towards infrastructure. Am I right?
It's going to go into infrastructure. It's going to go into education. It's going to go into creation of jobs, where we would have come up with some form of mechanism. Because what is happening with all the plastics lying out right now, if you should just engage 2-3 contractors, can you get rid of the plastics or all the plastics out there so that you'll be paid for, you will not find them
So you're
there.
calling on government to provide you with infrastructure so that you can then go ahead and process.
We want an enabling environment.
The
money is key. The
for
enforcement, the enforcement of the sanitation bylaws are key. We also need policies in place. Because by now we should be trading. We should have added some form of value to our plastics, so that it will be so attractive that the demand, once the demand is high, then you realize that then there's a business there, just like what we have with e-waste.
All right, we'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. But Mr. Butchie, so at the moment you're calling on government to ban imported plastics, and I get the logic there, you know, how it would boost the local industry. But there's also this call on government not to go for a ban on plastics. You've heard Amma talk about it as well. But this government has no plans to do that. In fact, they have stated that that's not what they think the solution is. So is it still a concern?
It can never be a concern, because they cannot do that, because the statistics are there. If you combine the plastic industry and the recycling sector and the sachet water industry, you put all these together, these three areas together, we generate over 5.7 million jobs. And that goes for about, it makes up 18.2% of the Ghanaian population. Almost 20% of 29 million people, we are giving them jobs. So there is no way government can ever make any attempt. They will know the economic consequences. In this day and era where we have high automation of production plants, so people are rather being laid off. I mean, in recent time we have MPS in Tema, where because of the high-tech machines, most people will be going home. The plastic industry is the only obvious sector that will generate employment. And
I guess the point I'm making is, if government doesn't have any plans to ban it, why are we even discussing the downsides of a ban?
But we should be responsible for the environment. Plastics in general, conventionally, will take decades or thousands of years to decay.
To degrade, yeah.
And we need to recycle. Why can't we do like elsewhere? Because when you go to Germany, for example, of course, we need to pitch ourselves better. Germany is almost 97%. Today, Germany is importing plastic waste for their recycling establishments. Nigeria has recently started. The Nigerian government is partnering the private sector to set up recycling plant for PET. In South Africa, they are doing fantastic. They are about 65–67% recycling the PET waste. Cameroon, I'm not sure Ghana would like to compare itself to Cameroon, but Cameroon even have the systems, the policies and the laws to regulate plastic recycling. So it is not a matter of we coming to just do business, but we need to care for the environment.
Right.
So we know government will not be able to ban plastics in Ghana, but then we should be able to take responsibility for the business that we do. Again, when on our own accord, we've suggested to government to put a 10% tax, which we are religiously paying. Why should the money sit elsewhere whilst we are engulfed with plastics?
Right. So if it turns out that that money is not available because it went into the consolidated fund and it disappeared into, I don't know, free SHS, for example, what are you going to do? Are you going to sue government? Or what,
we have an option to sue government, but I think for now, we are business people. We are not into politics and litigation. Our concern is that if every month we generate about 14.7, let's assume, as you just said, let's assume the money is gone. Starting from this month, the 14.7, that money alone can do so much. If we set up the authority and then start releasing the funds, 14.7 million every month, so not only Accra will be the cleanest city, but the entire Ghana will be very clean of plastics.
Now, let me ask you this. I mean, 14.7 million a month, that's a lot of money. But are you saying you would be willing to forgive the 900 million that has gone, as long as government says, oh, it's gone, but from now on, we'll give you 14.7
I'm not too
million.
sure about that.
Right. What would you do if they came to say that money?
Well, we will seek advice.
Right. But at the moment, you're expecting that it's there.
It's supposed to be there. Because the money, the Act states, and it is clear, the money is for plastic waste recycling. You can't use the money for any other business other than plastic waste management. So the money should be there. And till now, there hasn't been any form of government giving its funds for plastic waste management. So the money should be there.
All right. Now, the Minister for Environment, Science and Technology has talked about this. This is what I was referring to. Not so long ago, he talked about the concept of banning plastics and whether or not government is interested in that. Let's check out what he said, and then we'll take your final thoughts on this matter.
This is a very complex issue. We have to manage plastic. We don't consider plastic as a waste or filth as such, but it's a resource that can be utilized to create employment and to generate wealth. And so, in the first place, a ban can be considered, but that should not be the first thing, because already we have challenges. A lot of people, if we take sachet water, for example, because we have polluted our water bodies, people in our communities, especially in the mining areas, don't have access to the water because the water is cannot be used for domestic purposes. And therefore, they rely on plastic sachet water. So not until we have dealt with those other problems and make sure that there are alternatives, I don't think we can ban the plastic now. Also, I want to say that those who really want to ban the plastic can go ahead and do that. If you want to do it in your home, just go ahead and do that, and then tell us how you did it. and then we'll be able to adopt methods of dealing with the plastic waste. So what I want to say is that, yes, the question of banning some plastics can be considered. For example, I don't see why we should encourage plastic carrier bags. If you are going to the shopping center, we can go with the cotton bag or something. But having said that, it's not my word that I'm going to impose on Ghanaians. But we have a committee and gone through the process. We have a plastic management policy implementation plan that will be adored. And it will be presented before Cabinet, and when it's approved, you all get to know, and then your inputs will be welcomed. We don't like you see knee-jerk reactions, and you need to sit down and think and plan, get inputs from other people, so that whatever you come out with will be successful. So that can be part of the process. But I believe that there needs to be true reflection of the situation, look at all the possibilities, look at our weaknesses and the challenges that we face. No. See, not until we have gotten a replacement for something that can carry liquid, let's say water, oil, palm oil, cooking oil, and all the liquids that people buy in the market and so on, we are going to have challenges. If we are going to use bottles, are you going to wash them well, and so on. So we need to think about all the possibilities and not just ban things and then you have smuggling of plastics into Ghana. There are countries that have banned plastics. I know some countries in East Africa, Southern Africa, that have banned plastic. But there's active smuggling of plastics into those countries. And we don't want to a situation where you ban something and you can't police it well. So that's the situation.
Professor Frimpong Boateng is the Minister for Environment, Science and Technology, and very interesting. It would appear to me, and I'd love to hear your view on this, Amma. It would appear to me that while he's saying that this government has no plan to ban plastics, he doesn't seem to have much of a plan. So you hear him say, well, if you want to ban it in your home, do so, and then come and tell us how you did it. Like he's kind of waiting for someone to tell him how it's done. I don't know, what does that fill you and your colleagues with much hope?
No, that's the reason why private sector, we have taken the lead. And that's why we are using this opportunity to let government engage the private sector properly. It might interest you to know the reason why we are having all these challenges. In every country, in all the other countries where we have the bottling companies producing, they are all responsible. We call it the extended producer responsibility. And the policy that accounts for that is the polluter pay principles. And they all are abiding by the policies and laws of other countries. But it's only in Ghana they've ignored it. Why? They've all ignored it because they believe they are paying this tax. So once they are paying this tax to government then has a responsibility to make sure that it's responsible for the plastic, that the plastics that they are producing. Why should bottling companies be producing plastics and they are not responsible and they are not even taxed to retrieve it from the system, recycle and reuse it, and they are still producing? They produce as much as 40,000 a day. Why is it happening? It's because of this levy that they are paying to government.
Right.
So we are saying that once we are paying this levy, get these funds back to us, the private sector, so that we can exploit more opportunities and then retrieve these plastics and put them to good use. It can be done. All
right, let me ask you this. I mean, so as private players, you've come into the market of your own volition. Your biggest customer is government, and you're trying to clear up this plastic, but clearly there's so much of it that you are unable to deal with. And when I asked about capacity, that's what I meant, not know-how, but the logistical capacity to process the volumes of waste, plastic waste that is being produced. So you're saying that due to factors, economic factors, like the cost of power and so forth, Your sector is largely not making profit. Now, if your sector is not making profit, you're asking government to give you funds so that you can increase your infrastructure. How will that then translate into profit?
Yeah, we are not only asking for infrastructure. We are asking for an enabling environment. We are asking for policies that will make the sector very viable, very competitive. We are pushing for business models. That's what we are pushing for.
Right.
We want to say that with the plastics, they are valuables. So we are asking for a competitive market. And this can only happen if that enabling environment is there for the private sector.
So let me ask you,
we can get a lot more people. But then, this is a municipal service. And we know, it's like a social service. So we know people will not have money to, pay for the prices and what have you. So we have a fund. There's money out there. Just use that fund to support the sector so that we can improve on what we are doing. That is all that we are calling on government to do to support the sector.
Right. So the way in which you want the funds to be used is that it should be used to sort of pay the bills of those who can't pay.
No,
so
for
that
instance,
you provide
let
them
me
with
give you a very practical
service.
example. We say stop littering. When you go into town, do you have litter bins?
Oh, you're asking me a question. No, this is my interview. I ask you questions. All right. So
you
go
see,
ahead.
These are some of the practical things that we are talking about here. We say stop littering. Meanwhile, you go all over the place, and there's no place that you have no option than to leave it on the floor. We are saying we want valuable plastics to recycle. Meanwhile, we put all together. So where are those valuable plastics there that we are going to use, to have some value on, and then use to do the market bid that we are talking about?
If the plastic is valuable, why don't you put bins out there to collect them and use it to make money?
One bin is, even the smaller, the 240-liter bin is almost 200 Ghana cedi. And at the end of the day, what profit am I making so that I have to come and put those litter bins in the public to solve a social problem?
I thought you said plastic is valuable.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
So collect the valuable plastic with your bins and make money. How long will it take you to make your 200 cedis back?
It might take me a year to make that 200 cedis back. And
So?
I'm a private person.
Yes.
And the service we are into is a social service. And that's one thing that's the stage where we have to get to as a nation. So government is willing to support the sector. When it comes to sanitation, it is capital intensive.
All right. So here's a suggestion. Should government take this 900 million cedis and use it to set up a government-owned recycling plant, recycle the plastic themselves, make the money for government?
The law will not allow that. The Act doesn't allow that.
Why would the Act not allow that?
It's there. It's clear. It is for the private sector.
What is for the private sector?
The money.
The money,
yes,
is to be given to the private sector.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me quickly go back to the sector minister's part of his comments on. He was trying to suggest a ban on the carry bags. Unfortunately, we cannot ban the carry bags, the black carry bags. Of course, we can ban the imports, but the locally manufactured one we cannot. Why? The sachet water waste that we collect and recycle, by and large, that is the end product that comes in. So if there is a ban on the plastic carry bags, it means you equally ban recycling of the pure water waste.
You're saying that currently pure water waste is recycled and the only product you can make from it is black plastic bags.
Exactly.
That's the only thing you can make.
It is not. But mostly that is what the recycling companies are doing.
So if they ban it, then they simply change their business model, make something else.
It doesn't make any economic sense. You know, these are equipment that you cannot just alter. It means it calls for a whole new setup to be able to. If we go down technically, you will have to get molds.
What you're saying is that a ban will cost you money.
It will.
That's not rocket science. I think it's quite clear that it'll cost you money, but it'll also save our environment.
Yes, but
look at this image. I wonder if we can put up the image behind us. If we can put it up on the screen, look. That's what we're doing to our environment. And if cleaning that up will cost you and your colleagues some money,
which we are already paying.
Yes, so the suggestion here is that if we're going to take that money you've already paid and let people like Amma and her colleagues clear it up, we shouldn't then allow you to produce even more, so that we have to find more money for Amma to clear it up.
The best way, you know, we have the 3 R's: reduce, recycle. When it comes to PET recycling, the cost factors that goes into production vis-a-vis the cost of a virgin resin for PET bottle, the recycle is much more expensive than the virgin. So if I was producing PET bottle, then why the hassle? I'll prefer to use the virgin material. Means that I'm just adding up on the waste. So elsewhere in the world, government gives subsidy to for PET recycling. Exactly. That is what Amma is trying to say earlier on.
When she asked for the enabling environment.
Exactly.
Should we not focus on that? I'm just concerned that if you're hoping for this money, you might be disappointed. I'm sorry, I'm a Ghanaian. I know what happens in the consolidated fund. It's like the Bermuda Triangle.
You will. I will not let you land. You will have to support this by every appropriate means to make the right noise and the right demand to government to release this.
So that
are we suggesting that then we should stop paying these monies? Because we are not paying these monies. I may stand for correction. We are not paying these monies for government to use it for their projects. This is for plastic waste management. Otherwise, then we will stop.
Well, no plastic waste management, right? I want to say a big thank you to both of you. We've certainly enjoyed this conversation. We've learned a lot as well. Thank you both for your time.
Thank you.
Iboboche is the president of the Ghana Plastic Manufacturers Association. He was here with Amma Ufuri AG, who is executive secretary of Environmental Service Providers Association.